Hey everybody, it's Ryan from Pi Records, and I'm here with Craig from Little Kahuna. How are you, Craig?
Hey Ryan, I'm doing great. Nice to meet you finally.
Nice to meet you. I gotta say, I loved listening to the album. It was super mellow, and I really sometimes when I wake up in the morning and I know I have something to do, I'm like really like, okay, I gotta move. And then I listened to the CD and I was like, okay, now I can relax before this interview and like calm myself down because I drink a lot of coffee and you know you can see me shaking in some of my interviews just because I drink so much coffee.
Oh,
So tell me about your release. You got it on vinyl. Tell me a little bit about how you guys put it together.
thank you. Thanks, Ryan. So really like a story you've heard probably 1,000 times by now, but when everything shut down in 2020, it was kind of like, well, here I am sitting in my office. This is my office, and I've got my guitars and my amps and whatnot, and it was like, okay, what do I do now? So I like you, I have my iPhone with the voice. I just use the voice recorder, so I'll sing a melody in there, or I'll have I'll play a riff that I like, and so over the years, I hadn't really had time to develop any of those. So I just really, at that point, I thought, why don't I listen to all this stuff that I've put into the phone over the last 4 or 5 years, really, and then see if it amounts to anything. So I sat right here at this desk, right here, and I listened to it, got it all going, and then I thought, some of let me see if I develop these. So I started to develop some of the melodies and start putting some of the chord progressions together and developing the songs. And I recorded demos and then sent them out to my community of players, because I've been in quite a number of different surf bands. And so I sent those out, and because it wasn't specific surf music, as you could tell, I've been changing the beats and changing the feel and adding acoustic guitar, which we can talk about later, which was a huge Sandals
Yeah.
influence, Endless Summer. And so anyway, so I had a number of guys that said, yeah, I'd like to be part of that project. And so that's what we did from there. We started recording, but it was like just post lockdown, so we were all masked up. We do one at a time. And it presented issues on stops and starts, and on a click track, and then having the
Yeah.
drums filling in and that kind of thing. So there were hurdles we had to overcome. All in all, our guy that mixed it, Barry Wood, did a wonderful job for us and got the vibe we're trying to put across. And
Yeah.
so he did a really great job. So that's really how it all came together. And there was like, during that time, as there's sort of like, well, we got nothing but time,
Yeah.
there's no gigs, so we might as well just keep it going. So
Yeah.
at about 12 songs, I'd written about 14, sort of 12 of them made the cut, and that's then we just kept moving forward.
It's that first of all, that's why I started doing these shows in lockdown, because I couldn't go to work. Because I work at a TV station where we're all kind of close quarters in a control room. So
Mm,
you know, the building wouldn't allow us even into the building, much less work.
right.
So I sat around depressed for 2 months, and then I said, well, I might as well do something. So I started doing this. Um, but
I'm
it's inter-
glad you did.
oh well, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been really fun getting acquainted with people that I don't know, hearing their stories. I've enjoyed listening to your video, your YouTube channel.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I really I really love to hear that because I like to interview bands because in even some bands they say, "Well, I don't know if I have much to talk about," and I said, "Well, that's not that's not going to be a problem. It's just a casual conversation." And then they find out 30 minutes into the video, like, "Oh, I guess I did have something to talk about."
I think most of your artists started that way, frankly.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I remember I listened to Paul from the Starhoppers, and he. I think he kind of started that way, and certainly Dave Klein.
Yeah.
So it was cool.
It's interesting also that you mentioned using acoustic guitar in your brand of surf music, because there's this other guy, Scott, from Guitar Me of One, and his surf music that he does is all acoustic. And
Oh wow.
yeah, it's really interesting, and he's a really super cool guy, really down to earth, and like most musicians, he's into all different types of music, but he decided to try that out, and it turned out really well.
So I live in Orange County, California, and so when I started getting into surf music, I was very much attracted to the Endless Summer soundtrack. To me,
Yeah,
that really rang true. And what I found out was that the group called the Sandals, as you know, and so turns out they don't live very far from me. They're just up in Carmel. It's about a 7-hour drive. I suppose they're not really
I used to
close,
live
but
by there.
anyway, whereabouts?
Salinas.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You're
Yeah,
40 minutes from Carmel? Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
We got engaged there in Carmel by the Sea.
I met my wife there.
Oh,
Funny story. The guy that introduced me to my wife also bought me my first electric guitar, a 63 Fender Jaguar back in the early 90s. And that's when I started playing surf music, was because of that. But what I was going to say so I wanted to know more about their brand of surf music, as you put it, and so when we would go up the coast back to Carmel, I would look up the brothers. They were restaurateurs up there, Walter and Gaston Joris, and so Walter owned this place called Casanova's, which is a very famous restaurant in Carmel, and Gaston owned Les Bicyclettes, which is another bistro in downtown Carmel. So what would happen is we would go up there, we would meet with them, have coffee, and talk about surf music and talk about how they did it back in the 60s and this sort of thing. And one of the things he said was we incorporated acoustic guitars. We incorporated instruments like the clavietta. Let me see if I can find mine real quick and I'll show it to you. Yeah, of course I'm not going to be able to find it quickly, but they incorporated all these different instruments into their music, and I was very fascinated by that. So I went out and bought a clavietta. I had already owned an acoustic guitar, so this new release has several levels of acoustic. It's got nylon string, it's got steel string, and then of course it's got the assortment of Jaguars, Jazzmasters, Strats, Mosrite. So depending on what the song needed, because the song would sort of tell me what it wanted to sound like, and so then I would just pick the right set of guitars for
yeah.
that.
I have a question for you, because I haven't spoken to a lot of people who incorporate Moz rights. Usually it's the Jaguar or the Strat, sometimes the Telecaster in very rare instances. But tell me how the Moz right has affected your music.
Boldly. The Mosrite is a bold guitar. It's not a background instrument. It's a foreground instrument. You can hear the Ventures when they're playing them. It's pedal to the metal. you know, in a sense, you can't clean up like with a Strat, you could put on the front pickup, turn the tone down a little and make it sound a little more jazzy, that kind of thing. With a Mosrite, there's no way. These pickups are bold, they're strong. This is a Ventures model Mosrite, and these pickups on here are insane. They're just so big and bold and brassy that, in a sense, it makes you want to write songs that rock. It's a rocking machine. Really, what this is. So definitely not a Tele or a Strat. Really, I'd say if I had to compare it to anything, it'd be a little more Jazz Master, but with more grit.
Yeah. Me being from my background, the first time I saw Mosrite was Johnny Ramone, and no matter how many times and how many different guitars I play, it never sounds like that. It just has its own sound.
Yeah. There's no question. If you want the Ramone sound, you're going to need a Marshall and you're going to need a Mosrite, and that'll really get you there.
So tell me a little bit about your gear back there. It looks, I see the reverb tanks. Tell me about what, and I see I can't see, it's right by your Jags there. It looks like a combo.
Yeah. So over here, let me see if I can get this going. This is a 63 Bandmaster, and Ryan, I think that's my best sounding surf amp because it's not as loud as the Showman's, but it's got all the tone of a Showman. So that's my 63 Bandmaster. Down there's my little Tim Marcus Milkman. This guy here, my HT15. That's the equivalent of a brown-faced Princeton. So it's got that warbly vibrato that I love. But Tim built them with more strength. They're much bolder sounding, so I can get a good. I use that virtually for every demo recording and a lot on the actual release. Tim does great work. He's up in San Francisco. He's a great guy too. I met Billy Zoom a few years ago. There's a guitar tech called Steve Soest who used to be Dick Dale's bass player years ago. Steve would be a great interview for you. He knows everybody. Anyway, in Steve's building, Billy Zoom from X was there. And so I went and talked to him, and I said, Billy, I saw you guys after the first Los Angeles album, the X Los Angeles album came out, their first album. And I'm like, dude, your playing actually got me to want to play guitar. It was that strong. He was that strong of a player. And the way he played with his head back, I don't know if you can see his head's back, and he never looks at the fretboard, and he's just a monster player. So I said, Billy, and I gave him this whole spiel, and he looks at me, he goes, Craig, buy something off me. And I said, okay, I will. And then I thought about it for a while, and these Billy Zoom reverb units, this one here, they were getting great reviews on SG 101. So I called him back. I go, Billy, I'm ready to buy something off you. And I go, make me one of your Little Kahuna reverb tanks. So I used this reverb tank all over the album, and frankly ended up naming the album after the reverb tank because I liked the sound so much that I sort of lifted the Little Kahuna name and just put it on my album. That was my working title, because every time I turned on the amp and reverb tank, I see Little Kahuna, So that's kind of the way that worked out. So that's that one. And then this is a Tweed. This is a 1960 Tweed Tremolux. And so that amp I used on this song DD, whereby I did a little collaboration. This is the last song on the album, and I did a little collaboration with Joey Ganisic, and Joey is Dick Dale's was Dick Dale's best friend. He was his lawyer. He was his friend. He'd known Dick for 40 years. He played in Dick's band in the 70s. And so when I wanted to do a tribute to Dick, a song called DD, I'd written it, and I sent it to Joey. I was having problems with the bridge, and so I sent it to Joey, and he goes, this is Joey. He goes, Craig, I like the song, but the bridge sucks. And I said, Joey, that's what I'm talking about. I need help writing the bridge, So anyway, so I go to he and then I meet this whole Riverside thing. He's Inland Empire for me. So I go to Riverside, the Inland Empire, and I meet Joey, and he's telling me about his band, the Showmen, who were from Riverside, and then there was the Tornadoes. They were from out there as well, and there was other surf bands from out there, and I knew about the Tornadoes, but none of the others, And so anyway, I learned all about Inland Empire surf bands and their sound, and then Joey came. We worked on some stuff. Then I invited him back, and by then the first round of COVID was starting to wane. This was before the second wave.
Yeah.
So like there was a little time in there where it was sort of like, okay, we could probably get together and do something as a band as long as everybody's comfortable with that, right?
Yeah.
So frankly, that's the only song on the whole release that's done as a band with four of us in the same room together. It was our last song we did. And so he played my Showman. I said, don't bring yours. I have a couple of them. Anyway, he played my Big Duel. And then I thought, I want a different sound. I want something, because the Duel's got those 215 JBLs and all that. And I'm like, I want something that's going to kind of go in the middle of all that. And so I can have some presence, because if we're both blowing through Showmans, we're all in the same sort of sonic space.
Yeah.
So this is basically a deluxe in a bigger box with tremolo, and Fender called it the Tremolux. So I played this on that song, and it worked out great because he's heavy drip, and this thing's kind of more grindy. So I was getting drip and a little grind, and so I thought it came out great. I was super pleased with that, and with Joey's interpretation of my bridge. He changed it and just made it a lot better, and I was really appreciative of his input.
Did you guys get together to play that all at the same time? Did you record it live in the same room?
We recorded it live. Yeah. But the magic of my mixer, Barry Wood, put it all together so that it felt just like the rest of the record.
Yeah.
So he did a great job with that. Even though it's a complete different animal, he made it fit in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me about by your record over there. You have two more.
So 60. This is a wonderful tank. I've had this for years. This one, it's a 64 transitional tank. It's got sparkle weed, the blackface logo, black, but it's smooth blonde. It's a really nice. I have several Fender reverb tanks. This is one of my favorites. A 66 Princeton reverb. And then down here is my Fred Tacone. I don't know if you can see, the little red guy is my Fred Tacone divided by 13. And Fred makes wonderful amps. He builds for Paul McCartney's band, and many other touring pros use these divided by 13. And he's been a friend of mine for years. He was an amp tech back in the day, so he's repairing my amps. And then he decided to build his own, and I have several of them. This one being only, it's got a switch between 10 and 20 watts, but I play this live mostly. And then he built me a reverb tank to go with it. So it's really great. And then this is my 64 Strat, the vintage Mosrite, 65 Jazzmaster, 65. I call this guitar Carl because it's Carl Wilson's. It wasn't really his, but it's the one he played, a white Jaguar. So I call that, that's Carl. And then that blue one's a 62 reissue. And I bought that off a friend of mine, Daniel Blanca, who said it was one of the nicest issues he'd ever played. And I got it, and it has this incredible finish. It's late classic blue, but it's kind of on the turquoisey side. I don't know if you can see that well. It's kind of the turquoisey side.
Looks like kind of one of those flip-flops paint jobs.
It is. And so it's a reissue, but it's just so good that and he played it and loved it. Look, it's kind of getting all dirty. I've been playing it a lot, and it still has the original three-way, which is kind of a funky deal, because if you want the middle settings, you got to kind of you can't do it on the fly. You got to do the Clapton thing where you sort of put it in the spot and hope it stays. But I don't want to change anything on it. It's just too cool, you know.
Totally. So let's get a look at your vinyl. I love the artwork. As we spoke before the interview, it's very oh yeah, the yellow vinyl. Look at that.
Yeah,
it kind of represents the sun on the album cover.
Exactly right. It's exactly what we were going for. We wanted something bright and sunny. In fact, there's a girl up in Seattle that makes boxes, and I needed something to travel with. So she made this for me.
Wow!
This is a vinyl carrying box. So you open it and you put vinyl in here. I haven't used it yet because we're just starting our season. I just got this. So when I go to gigs, I'm going to put vinyl in here and then take it with me. Anyway, Kim, her name's Kim, and she laughed when she got the album. And I said, "Why are you laughing?" And she goes, "Because it's been raining here in Seattle for 2 months solid." And I open this up, and you bring in a little sun into my world. And I thought, God, that's exactly right.
That box is awesome.
Yeah, the box is cool. She does great stuff. And then with the rest of the albums that are left over, she calls these her groovy mini box. So Little Kahuna. I feel like I'm doing a commercial for you, Kim, but anyway, it's pretty cool. And her thing is Artifact on Etsy.
Awesome. So where you the album I'm guessing is very new to you, but tell me what your plans are right now. Like, are you looking to play shows to promote it? Are you writing some more? Like, what is your immediate plans?
Right. All of that. So we've been, Ryan, a few directions on that answer, but in terms of playing, we've been fortunate enough to be so we've changed. It's technically not a surf record. Like, it's got surf songs on it, but it also has like a bossa nova feel, sandals feel, you know. So we've been lucky enough that there's a little club in town in Long Beach called Secret Island, and it's a tiki bar, right? And so we opened it. They invited us to open it, and we did. And the owners really liked us, and the promoter really liked us. So we've played there a number of times. I mean, in the pandemic, like during lulls, you know. And so we're in fact, we're due to play there over Memorial Weekend coming up. But anyway, the point is that shows are starting to come back here now.
Yeah.
And so we've been invited to play on a different track. We've been invited to go and play at tiki events. So we have a couple coming up. There's one coming up on April 10th in Whittier called Oceana Arts. And this place is ground zero for the mid century tiki revival movement. This is where it happened. And so when COVID hit, they just closed their doors and walked away and essentially went out of business. But they had they didn't necessarily liquidate their inventory and this sort of thing. So this art gallery formed a partnership with them to put on tiki events there, and so we're going to be playing those. And then one of them, and then down in Palm Springs, there's this thing called Alohana, which is another big tiki event, and it's right around the corner from Shag. You know, the great album, the great what would you call him, painter, graphic arts guy. He designed the new album cover for that stereophonic band from Sweden, Norway, Sweden, that's just out of this world. Anyway, so we're going to play there. So we've been fortunate enough to be like recategorized from surf into tiki, you know, because of this release. And so it's been fun for us to have new audiences, because I think the surf gigs have become few and far between as of late, and so moving in a tiki direction has been really good for us.
Was that kind of a happy accident?
Happy accident. Couldn't have put it better.
Yeah.
We start playing at the Secret Island, and they're like, wow, you know, so like with the surf band, the Breakaways, or the Curl Riders, or the Nocturnes, Joey's band. I've been in lots of different surf bands. So with those bands, you know, you play, you finish a set, and sort of like nothing happens, you know. Like I remember in the early days playing Hawaii Five-0, the place would go nuts. You know, before COVID, you play Hawaii Five-0 and there's crickets in the house, you know. So I think what was happening, I think surf music was kind of not as popular as it once was, you know. So after we'd finish a set, no one would come up and say, hey, can we get a business card? Do you have any merch? You know, this kind of thing. So we do the Secret Island gig. First, the tip jar had $500 in it. Wow. And we're selling, right? And then we're selling vinyl. We're selling T-shirts. We're selling CDs. People are having to sign the vinyl and stuff like that. And so it's like it was a complete different vibe. And that was the happy accident you just mentioned. So I'm like, okay, this is our guys. We just had a huddle, you know. Guys, here's our new direction. We're a tiki band now. And the promoter, Christopher Burkhardt, a friend of mine too, he didn't like the surf band as like the break and stuff as much, because we were loud, you know. It was surf music. It was bold. It was loud. It was, you know, but then we debut all this material, and it's not so bold and loud. It's more, you know, string your hammock between two palm trees, you know, and take a nap, sort of thing, and or roll the windows down and drive down Coast Highway, you know, mellower, like in the summer. And so that changed everything for us.
One thing you mentioned earlier and before the interview is that you've been in lots of bands, and you just mentioned that. Why don't you take me through a history of how you got to where you are, what your bands were, the styles. I'm really interested in how people evolve in their music.
Okay. I kind of anticipated you to ask me that, so I'm prepared for that. Bought a friend of mine bought me a Jaguar, 63 Jaguar, back in around about 93, 92, 91, somewhere early 90s. And then I took lessons for 4 years at the guitar shop in Laguna, a local guitar shop to me. little independent mom and pop operation, but loved all the guys in there. The owners, Kirk Sand, builds amazing guitars for people like Jose Feliciano, stuff like that. They're electric acoustics with nylon strings, and Chet Atkins played those, and we met Chet at a thing there. But anyway, so I took lessons from there for 4 years until I finally thought, you know what, it's time for me to start a band. So at that time, there was this rag called the Recycler.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah.
You remember the Recycler?
Yeah.
Okay. You'd call that Craigslist today, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in any case, so I put an ad out in the Recycler, and a bunch of people responded. You'd laugh at this, but one of the guys, he's like, surf music, I think I know what that is, but can we play some Who? And I'm like, dude, I love the Who, but no, and so I had all these different responses. So anyway, I boiled it down to about 4 guys. We started rehearsing in my garage Tuesday nights. We called it the Tuesday Night Surf Band. And then we went through 2 years, Ryan, 2 years we rehearsed in the surf band till in my garage. And then one day on the garage door, I'm like, oh no, here it comes.
Yeah.
And so I open the door, and it's one of our neighbors standing like this, she's got the pose, and so she says, you know what, finger in the air, I've been listening to you guys for 2 years now. And I'm like, oh my God, here it comes. And she goes, you're good. Let me hire you for a party. And we got our first gig, a local high school, local elementary school end of year party. She was the PTA president. She hired us for this local surf party at a local elementary school, literally at the end of my street. And so we did. That was our first gig, and then but the band was too big. There was too many guitar players and all this stuff. And we had a couple of drummers, and it was just, I needed to boil it down to 4. So I boiled it down to 4. And we started playing all the time. And then we went in and recorded a CD called Surf Jam. And this is Barry Wood did the cover art on this. This is from 95, 4, something like that. And so the same guy that did Little Kahuna did this one. Nice. So this was all covers, Pipeline and Moto and Cruel Sea, and so we finally did a first CD of covers, so we'd have something to give away at shows and maybe even sell a few of them, So then we reformatted the band a little bit, and so what was happening at that time was there was a lot of charities going on in our area. In particular, we're not far from Chalk Hospital, Children's Hospital in Orange. And so I wanted to start doing some outreach to charities with the surf band. And so, but that's a different format because we're actually playing in the hospital. So we substitute bongos and congas for drums. And then we play our usual guitars, but with champs, Fender champs, little tiny amps. And then we would go into particularly the oncology wards, and we would play for the kids and their parents for 35 minutes. Then we go up to the 5th floor and do it was pediatric oncology and then adult oncology. So we would play there as well. We did that for years. And then we got this idea to record the second CD, which is Cowabongo. And so, nice. And then Barry, he did a cool little back cover with the guitar lying in the sand. And I don't know if that's coming through. So then that happened. Then Jim Dunfriend was sort of a friend in the surf community. He had a surf show called Surf Wave on KXLU, which is a radio station at Loyola Marymount University, which is in LA. So he said, why don't you guys come and play on our show and do an hour of talk, So we did that, and we recorded it and then released this CD called On the Air. And by this time we had met Larry Ellis, Larry Anderson, my lead guitar player on these 2 CDs, we were playing 56 shows a year, and Larry's like, dude, I'm out. I don't want to do that much playing, you know? And so I kind of freaked out, and I replaced him with 2 other guitar players. So there's 3 guitars, bass and drums in the band. And so that's when we recorded this, but we met Larry Ellis. He was in a band called The Illusions. And they were the house band for the Cinnamon Cinder, which was the surf house in Long Beach. And so they were the house band. Think of Rendezvous Ballroom, but Long Beach. It was called the Cinnamon Cinder. So anyway, Larry joined our band for a year, and lovely guy. He just turned 83 the other day. Anyway, he stayed with us for a year. In the meantime, I have my original cassette. We released it on cassette.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Here's the cassette. I found it. I was specifically looking for it. And we called Paul Johnson, and we said, hey, Paul, we did this on the air thing. Do you mind producing it for us? And he's like, no problems. So he rented some studio space. He went in and produced it for us. So that began our relationship with PJ, obviously the guy who wrote Mr. Moto, and fundamental guy in the surf community. So then we formed a relationship with him.
That's so awesome.
I can go on. You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
So in the meantime, the Jeff Hansen, who we talked about earlier, friend of yours and mine, he took over for what was Corvette Sandy. Anyway, she did, now he does these shows called Surfing Sundays in Huntington Beach.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, they used to be at the Surfing Museum. There's a surf museum that had Bruce Brown's original camera he filmed the Endless Summer on, and old boards. And I met Jan and Dean there, or Jan, I think. Anyway, Dick Dale would come and play there, and we would open for him and play with Dick a lot, but we've been doing that with Dick for years. But then we recorded another CD there, this one called, what's this one called? Breaking Live. So we did that one, and now we're starting to write originals. Okay. So finally that led to this one, Time Surfing, and Duff Paulson did the cover art on this one. He was in the Torquays, and loads of bands. Duff's played with everybody. So our thought was, this is, I think, Austin Powers. This is a time vortex, So here we are playing in front of the time vortex, and then here's the vortex sucking us in to 63.
Yeah, nice.
So Duff designed that. Well, in the meantime, we got asked to do side projects. This is all the Breakaways. So we did this one called Ziggy Plays Surf Guitar, and we contributed. It was all David Bowie. This is a British guy, and it was all David Bowie. And we did Cat People Putting Out Fire. We did a surfed up version of that.
Yeah.
And that was super fun. And then a guy called me to do this one, Six Gun Surf. And then by then I'd bought a bass 6. So I'm playing bass 6 by now on several songs. And so we did a song on here that we love. It was what was that one called? It was a Percy Faith song. I'll think of it in a minute. Let me see if it's here. It should be. Oh, it's on the CD. Yeah, I don't see it right now. But anyway, we contributed a song to this CD, Six Gun Surf, and that was really fun. And then Bob Daly called me and said, "Do you mind doing one for this one?"
Yes.
The Surf Raiders.
That's
right.
That's brand new, right?
Brand new. So I got the now by the Breakaways were my band for a long time, 20 plus years. And so by then Gus, our drummer, was becoming a professional drummer. And so he couldn't really do a lot of the charity shows I wanted. We do the Alzheimer's Association, the Relay for Life, Ronald McDonald House. We were doing loads of the local charity gigs at the time, and they're non-payers. We're just donating our time, and
Yeah.
he became so I needed to form another band that didn't mind doing the charity. So I started the Curl Riders with guys that were retired and didn't necessarily need the money, you know. So then we started doing let's see, we would do Surf Raiders songs. Like the Curl Rider and stuff like that. And so Bob got all, and Bob and I have been friends. I bought his first book back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Surf
Yeah.
guitars, right?
Yeah.
And look, it's all dog-eared, and I have notes through it. And anyway, Bob and I would write to each other. Ryan, this is pre-internet, so
Yeah.
he and I are writing letters to each other, and I'm saying, Bob, I just can't get that drippy sound. You know, can you help me? And so he put me in touch with Armin Brown, who's another guy you're going to want to meet. Great guy. Long story short, that book was very influential, along with John Blair's book. So these two books, the illustrated discography of surf music, these two books I poured over in the early 90s. And then I'm sorry, I'm way off track, but then I would start visiting some of the sites that are in these books, like Downey Records. I dragged my wife up to Downey Records, and she's like, "Where are we going?" I'm going, "We're going to the site where they recorded Pipeline. We're going to Surf Mecca," right? So we show up at this building, and it's a record store. So anyway, we go in and we look at the records, and I asked the owner, which was still Wenzel. I think it was Jack. I think Tom was the guy that did all the recordings, and his brother Jack, or the other way around. But they're the Wenzel brothers. They're the ones that did all those recordings in that day that became a CD. This one, Surf Legends and Rumors, and this whole CD was all the guys, the Rumblers, the Chevelles, the Blazers, the Pastel Six, the Hustlers, the Chantays, all those bands, the Revels, you know. Comanche, and those songs were all recorded there. So I wanted to see it, and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I go into what was the recording studio, which was the adjacent room?" And he said, "No problem." So I went in there, and at that point, it was a dump for jukebox 45s. Jukeboxes were gone by then. And so there was things called jukebox dumps, where all those, or 45 dumps, something like that, where all those 45s that came out of all those jukeboxes got dumped into these stores, you know. And so he had a jukebox dump there, and it was just racks and racks and racks of 45s. And so he showed me, he goes, "This is the spot we recorded. We put the microphone here." It was kind of like going to Memphis and seeing Sun Records, you know. Sun, you know, it was very much like that, where you see where they did it. And then he takes me in the bathroom, and I'm like, "Why are you taking me in the bathroom?" And he said, "Here along the top shelf of the bathroom are all the original reel-to-reels that we used to record on, and those are all original." And anyway, some German outfit got a hold of a handful of those, and they produced this CD. And I think there was a follow-up to this one, and this was from '88. And so when I got this, I had this before that, and Bob's book told me about where that was. And so we just went and explored and found out, and so on and so forth. So I became really kind of steeped in the surf music culture. And then since then, and obviously my final release, this is my final Little Kahuna, but I've made a lot of great friends in the community. It's been fun, because living here in SoCal, Ryan, you know, Bob Spickard sat in with us a bunch of times, Masoner, who else? Paul Johnson, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so even one day we're doing a charity gig, and in Newport, and there's a piano player there, but he's doing DJ gig. He's like a DJ gig, and I'm like, that's weird. And we played Mr. Moto, and he goes, I'm the guy who played piano on that song originally. And we're like, you're Jim Roberts. We knew his name. We go, you're Jim Roberts. He goes, I'm Jim Roberts. I played piano with the Bel Airs back in the day. And we're like, dude, you're playing Mr. Moto with us. And this happens a lot. And we were playing one gig at in LA, there's a famous it's a police training area, and there was a car show there called Cops for Tots, and so at Elysian Park, it's the famous police academy. You see it in the movies.
Yeah.
Well, we were doing a gig, right? And Jay Leno's wandering. We met Jay Leno. He was wandering around because he's got a big car collection, Anyway, we're playing, and we did Out of Limits, and up comes this cop. Cop walks up, and bald, rotund, and says, he goes, I was in the Marquettes. And we're like, wait, excuse me? He goes, yeah, I'm one of the original guitar players for what they call the touring Marquettes. So the Marquettes were just the LA guys, right? The Blue Wrecking Crew, and then but once those songs took off, they needed to start touring, and so they hired a touring band to go on tour as the Marquettes. He was in the touring Marquettes. He comes up, we go, dude, you're playing Out of Limits with us. And so he plays Out of Limits with us, and he ended up staying with the band for 2 years. So we've had a lot of fun over the years, Ryan. The players coming in and out. Larry Ellis. This guy's name was Ed Riojas. We love Ed and we love Larry. They're both beautiful people, but Ed had another band called Mutual Aid, Cops That Rock, and there were a bunch of cops that would play events, and that band was getting real busy, so he wasn't able to do us much anymore, so he went his own way. And so anyway, we've had so much fun through the years in the surf community, because it's such a small community that you can rub shoulders with the legends and have them sit in and stuff.
Yeah.
Bob Spickard sitting with us on Pipeline. I mean, and one time we're playing at a backyard party, and the girl comes up and says, my boyfriend's Jeff Baxter. And I'm like, wait, Doobie Brothers, Steely Dan, that Jeff Baxter? And she's like, that's the one. And he's coming to this party you're playing at. And so I'm like, okay, great, So I know, I do a little homework on him. I know that he loves Jazz Masters. This is my 65 Jazz Master, right? So I know he loves Jazz Masters. So I bring a vintage brown face Pro, a 61 Pro, 65 Jazz Master, and I give him one of my reverb tanks to play through. So he shows up, back party, he shows up and says, I said, hey, Skunk, it's nice to meet you, and blah blah blah, and he says, I said, look, I've brought you a rig, for you. I got my rig. I had a concert and all this, but here's your rig. And I showed it to him. He goes, nah, I'm not going to be playing today. So I'm just here to hang out with my girlfriend, And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So we're playing Baja. And I do the lead on Baja, and Bruce does the rhythm on it. Well, he's playing the rhythm, and a string breaks. He breaks a string. And on a Stratocaster, when you break a string, that's a very bad thing, because the whole thing goes out of tune, right?
Yeah.
So immediately he has to stop playing and go get his guitar, another guitar. And I look at, as soon as that happens, I just happen to be looking out of the audience, and Baxter, his head pops up and he turns, and he looks towards us. He immediately knows something's wrong, right? Because he was in a surf band back in the 60s in Mexico City when he first started playing guitar. He told us. So Baxter's head pops up. He's looking around, and Bruce is fumbling around to get his other guitar going. And in the meantime, Baxter hops up, runs on stage, turns the amp on, picks up that jazz master, that same jazz master right there, and starts playing the rhythm, the Baja, the tic tac part. And then I come back with the lead, and we finish the song, and he goes, "You guys know Apache?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, we know Apache." So he played the lead, we played rhythm on Apache, and how about, and he starts calling out songs, and we're like, "Yeah, we can, yeah." And he ended up sitting in with us till the cops came and shut us down. And he goes out and meets the cops because he's affiliated with law enforcement, and so he shows him his badge, and he's like, "Hey, these guys are cool. It's okay." I go, "Jeff, we're good. Let's not. Anyway, it was funny. I had to tell him we were going to finish instead of the other way around. So it was pretty cute. He got to sit in with a local surf band, and we had smiles from ear to ear playing with a player of that caliber. So anyway, I don't know. I've rambled a lot. Sorry, but that's kind of my sort of background, and I've had the band over 25 years, various bands, and what I'm really enjoying is this movement towards the gentler, softer tiki sounds.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much, Craig, for being on the show. It's great to hear your story. You have a rich history and a hell of a stack of output there of material, and you should be very, very proud of your accomplishments and all the people you met. It sounds like you've had a blast.
It's a blast, that's for sure. I've certainly had a blast, and I've met beautiful people along the way. It's been great.
Yeah. That's one thing I learned about talking to people in the surf community is they're all very down to earth and eager to talk about music, just like I am. I love, doesn't matter what kind of music. I just love to talk about music, and the conversation can go any way. But it's very nice to meet all the people that I've met, and I'm sure it was the same for you when you got to meet them. You got all starry eyed and yeah.
Totally. And Jim Masoner, from the Lively Ones, I helped jumpstart. He had a minivan that the battery was dead, and we're helping him jumpstart his car. These people are just regular old people.
Yeah.
And that's really fun. It's a fun thing.
Awesome. Well, again, I'd like to say thank you so much for your time. I know it's early out in Orange County, but I always respect the fact that people will lend me their time, and I appreciate your story and you lending me some of your time. And I just wanted to say I hope you have a great day. I hope this started your day off well.
It did. Thank you, Ryan. And it's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for all the time you take. I've really been enjoying a lot of the YouTube videos that you've done, meeting Sean Berry. I've been corresponding with him, but I got to know him more through yours, and I hadn't seen Tunas for years, and nice getting caught up with what they're up to. And of course, Clint Beechwood's a friend of mine. That was cool watching him. And so it's a very rich tapestry, and I'm kind of looking forward to exploring some of the people that I don't know so well.
Yeah.
That'll be fun too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and have a great day, and please stay in contact. I'll help you promote anything I can. I'll do whatever you need me to do.
No problem. I'll send you some of the vinyl, and I'd love to have you and your wife give me some feedback on it.
Yeah, really definitely. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, have a great day, Craig.
All right, Ryan. Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot for taking time with me today.